Warm greetings. Welcome to today's session of Women in Architecture. The discussion on women in architecture is about understanding the nuances of being women in the profession of architecture, and it is placed in the larger purview of being in the diverse fields of the built environment where women who started their career with architecture education are actually interacted with. The session is conducted with the support of Eco Development and Research Cell, a not-for-profit initiative by the Environmental Design Consultants EDC Ahmedabad. This is Mansee Bal Bhargava from the House of EDC and the host for the discussion today. We are glad to take this conversation, and which is basically a study with the women engaging in the practice and the pedagogy of the built environment with an aim to elaborate, celebrate the presence and participation of women in shaping the built environment. The objectives are to learn, document, disseminate the biographical journey of women who chose practice, research, education, arts, activism, and a mix of many of these in a multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary approach to chart their career path. Through the study, we wish to acknowledge and appreciate the contribution of women in the profession and bring forth the critical points that need to be addressed at individual, institutional, and collective levels as what makes or breaks or tweaks the career of women architects in India and everywhere who come from India. The study allows us to implicitly understand how women maneuver their lives to find their purpose of being useful to the profession, to the society, and explicitly the idea through this conversation is to build role models for the current and future generation. The studies call for action to all to realize the need for an equitable architectural profession in order to advance towards an equitable and sustainable built environment. This study is based on the presumption that the profession is heavily patriarchal, masculine. The method which we use is called autoethnography, which in simple words means the life journey of our speaker or the guest or interviewee or respondent and the researcher's pen, which is me here today. The method includes semi-structured, open-ended interactions followed by developing a video series of the interaction. We have now 70 conversations already held, open access. And eventually, when we reach 100, we wish to also come up with a coffee table book. Today in this conversation, we have Kalpana Sutaria, and I look forward to learning about her journey of life. Thank you so much, Kalpana, to first of all, to really accept this interview call. And also, this is early morning at your place and take this conversation right at the beginning of the day. But I'm sure it's going to be refreshing as well as reflecting as I hear from most of our previous speakers. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, but just to make a small disclaimer that the conversation is about sharing the worries and the wisdom by the woman, for the woman, of the woman in the built environment. And personally, I have tried to discipline it in little ways so that it can happen better. I like a master class. So it's an open access education program which is intended to. Before I invite you to engage in this conversation, a brief biography of yours. Kalpana Sutaria is an architect and project manager working for the city of Austin in USA. She has worked on climate responsive buildings and has promoted sustainable guidelines in cities' buildings throughout her career. She has been a volunteer at the Citizens Climate Lobby, which is working to create a political will to transition away from polluting fuels. She believes that green buildings are crucial, but to cool our environment, we need policies to lower carbon from all sectors of our economy. She has a master's in architecture from University of Texas, Austin. She is licensed architect in the state of Texas, lead accredited professional, and a project management professional. So now, keeping the professional biography at the backdrop as a foundation, we want to go and find out Kalpana, the girl, the woman in the profession. So it's about Kalpana. It's not about Kalpana's work, but definitely who Kalpana is shapes how Kalpana has evolved as a professional. So I hope you are all set for this candid conversation. I'm sure you are going to enjoy it. And let's start. What do you think?
Thank you for all that introduction. And so you took me back to my, childhood years. And when as a child, I did not know what an architect is.
Mm-hmm.
I had three brothers, and so I was
Mm-hmm.
the only daughter, and I was good at drawing, and I was also good at arithmetic,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but I did not know what architects do. But one of my cousins had said, "Oh, maybe you can go to architecture," and I wanted to, but at that time, my parents wanted me to go become a doctor, medical doctor.
Which was very common as a bright student.
Yes,
So were you
exactly.
raised in India or you were yeah, okay.
Yes, I was raised in Ahmedabad,
Mm-hmm.
where the School of
Yeah,
Architecture
I
is.
also come from Ahmedabad, so yes.
Oh, okay. So you know.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I was raised in a large family, my grandparents, my parents, my brothers, all of us. And the house that my grandfather had built was, like outside the city, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the old city is on the east side,
Yes.
the port city. And then outside the city, my grandfather had built a house, which was, I was totally impressed by it because he had very little money, but he built,
Mm.
room by room by room, but he wanted a good life for his
Mm.
grandchildren. And he was
Mm.
very much for education.
Mm.
So when I was a child, there was no question that I would not study. Everybody would go to
Mm.
college. It was
Mm.
my
Mm.
parents, my grandparents.
But why architecture for you then?
Yeah, so I'm thinking that my maternal grandparents lived in the old city and they had a big
Mm-hmm.
home there. And we used to, like vacation, we used to spend there. And I realized the experience in that house versus the experience in my own house,
Mm-hmm.
where I live. And they are so different because the
Mm.
old homes, old city
Yes,
homes,
the pole houses, yes.
old houses. So, like that distinct feeling of cooler
Mm.
homes and
Mm.
comfort. I,
Mm.
because it was always my obsession. I suffered from heat and
Mm. Oh,
probably
yes,
more
yeah.
than others.
Very hot
Like my
now.
husband tells me, that I suffer more than, others. And so I had that in my mind that
Mm.
something has, design has somebody, whoever builds the homes, has something to do with it. I did not know still what architect.
Yes.
And so my, I went to science college because my father and mother wanted me to become a doctor. So I went to
Yes.
pre-science. And that's when I had typhoid. And
Mm.
I was doing very well in the science college, but
Mm-hmm.
I was I almost didn't survive. It was severe typhoid.
Mm. Oh.
And so
Mm.
at that time I asked my father, can I go to architecture?
Mm-hmm.
And he was so worried about me about being sick, and so he said yes. And so even though I had done 1 year in pre-science, I went to applied for it. And as you know it, that it is so hard for women
Yes.
to get admission. And there were 30 women, and our 68 batch, which is
Mm.
Alka
Oh, you
Chawla.
are from 68 batch?
Yes,
Oh
Parul
my God,
Javeri.
I
I
wasn't
know.
even born. So,
I can imagine you probably were not born.
but it is so humbling to really have you here and have this conversation. Yes, I'm really thankful.
Yes, yes, I'm old.
Wow.
I'm from that time, and we had 8 women for the first time in
Wow.
School of Architecture because otherwise they
But that's
used
a good
to,
number in 68.
yes, because there used to be 1 or 2 or 3 women in each
Hmm.
class. And
Okay. So
so you can
then
imagine.
your number was growing.
So our batch, when we got 8 women, there was like in School of Architecture, it was like everybody talked about it. Look at how many women who are in there.
Wow. And here we
So
are talking about it from 68 to 26. It's almost like 50 years now.
yes, yes. So anyway,
No,
that is
more than 50 years. It's
it's
going 58.
60 years. It's
Yeah,
59 years.
58. Yeah,
Yeah,
58 years. Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that is how I applied. And I had to say that School of Architecture was an elite institution then. Maybe it
Mm.
is now also, SEP.
It is still, yes.
Yes. And higher fees. So that's one
Mm.
thing I had to ask my father, because my fees were so much higher than my
Mm.
brothers who went to the university, Gujarat University colleges. So
Mhm.
I
But
always
that's
had
a government college.
exactly. So it was still, one has to consider, right, that it's going
Yes,
to
of course,
cost.
parents have to look at to be nice, equal to all children. Yes.
Yes, yes. So anyway, but my father and mother were extremely supportive, and I joined. And first year I did extremely well, so they were pleased that we had Neil Barel. I don't
Yeah.
know if you know.
Okay. No.
And so he was very creative in teaching, and so he was. I still maintain my friendship with him, and
Mm-hmm.
but it was energizing, the
Mm.
first year, and so we all, and how we worked together, those nightly all-nighters
Yes.
for, yeah,
I
design.
think architecture is education is all about night works.
Exactly. So that is how I joined. But I have to say, it was until, and then interview process, you remember, I don't know if you had, we had three-step interview
Mm.
process. You
Not
write
re I
it.
mean, I'm not from SEPT, but I'm aware of it. But in masters, I did from SEPT, and there was this free process.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was so pleased that I got admission.
Yes. But
And
I just want to come to the next question here about, because you already mentioned you eight in those days was kind of a big number to be in women. But when you were getting your education there and immediately in your early career, did you ever realize that it is going to be different to be woman in the profession, or because in the way the society was set up, and I'm now talking about 60 years ago, it was definitely patriarchal then also, because it is still patriarchal, but it is much better in advanced in terms of looking at girl child. But
Mhm.
in the education, how was it being girl? Did you personally realize that it is gonna be different, or it was like no, there is no difference about being woman in the profession? And if
Oh,
so, when did you realize it, in the career, in the early career, or in the education time, or sometime in later in your life? Did you think there is a difference of being woman in the profession?
yes, I did. I did.
Okay.
And I think it was not any like specific moment,
Of course not.
but overall, I was, and I'll tell you later on about my nonprofit group that I started in Austin, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about women. So I always felt, even before I joined School of Architecture, how
Okay.
women were being treated differently, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in a derogatory manner.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I was fortunate because I was the only daughter, and uh, my parents treated me like a son, or just, there was no, like some women, I think, felt in their own homes that they were not
Mm-hmm.
treated the same as
Yes,
their son.
absolutely. Yeah, the discrimination actually starts from home also most of the time.
Exactly. But
Parents
they
discriminate.
somehow, I was always felt made to feel special. And so I
Yeah,
didn't go
that's
through
nice.
that at home, but
Mm,
I saw others, I mean,
mm.
you interact all the time socially, and
Yes, of course.
it always used to bother me as a child.
Mm,
As to I
mm.
once in a while would tell my mother, and she was always open to listening, but she says that's how our culture is.
Society is, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And the thing is, the way society is shaped, of course, the profession is also, and education is also going to be shaped around that
exactly.
culture. Mm.
Exactly. So in School of Architecture, it was no different. There was hard, I think Meena Jain was the only one that we knew
And my
as,
role model, actually, Amina, when I worked with her, so in
exactly.
my early career, and
Yeah, KB Jain and Meena. But
rock
it was,
solid.
yeah, but you know, clearly it was dominated by men, all teachers. And if
Mm.
you don't have students, you can't have, professors because you have to.
Mm.
But even after so many women, I mean, I felt it, and I'm talking about later days that I have been learning from my friend Madhavi Desai that
Yes.
she, she and Mickey were together and they were just 1 year ahead of us. So we could see,
Okay.
yeah, we could see that, how uh, when you are together, it's always men's work, that
Yes.
is given more importance. And
Mm.
she never, I mean, our school was not promoting female teachers,
Yes.
and which they should have. After getting several women, they were
Mm.
not doing that. And as you
Mm.
mentioned, it's a cultural thing that
Mm.
women in a male dominated profession like
We
architecture.
are second citizen anyway in the society. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, and one time, at some point, I'll tell you about my group and the lessons I learned about
Mm.
how that phenomenon happens. But when that
Mhm.
question comes, I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay. So it's good to learn that you were very conscious about it because of the cultural surroundings, which many of us normalize it or it goes unnoticed for many people. And then there are some people who are, of course, also blessed about being, raised in a very equal kind of a setting. But of having said that, it is also very common to observe now and even in the past, I'm sure. Once you have been educated very well at par with boys or men for that matter, there are certain expectations. And the way architecture profession was shaped even then and now, I assume in your time also, and pardon me if I am wrong, but that the profession asks you to become an architect by profession. And now when I look back, I see many of the women architects in the country are actually in education, purely education and
Okay.
research, and they are almost excluded from the idea that they are architects, but I know you are in practice and you are also a mentor to many people. I would like to know from you how it is to be a woman who is trying to balance her own profession. And as a passionate person, you are also following your passion about working on sustainability and gender matter as your work. What it is for a woman to really find a balance between passion, profession, and personal life. I ask this question particularly from the point that most of the women who take higher education, the fallout from the professional space or in the career is when they get married or when they have children or there's pressure or they themselves think that they make that choice that they think about doing certain things. How was it with Kalpana? I mean, how did Kalpana raise herself to become
Yes.
independent practitioner? What did happen? I mean, how did you take those things forward?
So and you're right. The critical time is when you finish your bachelor's degree
Yes.
and you have to make
What
certain
next?
decisions. What's next? So my parents were sensitive that, I have studied this much and you can't just get her
Hmm,
married to anyone.
hmm,
So
hmm,
they said, okay, we are going to find an architect for you.
hmm, hmm,
And
hmm,
I told them that I want to study more. I do not want to get married at this time.
hmm,
And so they said, okay, you want to go to America to study because Miki and
hmm,
Madhvi were here at that time and
hmm,
they
hmm,
were very close to they knew my parents. And
hmm.
so they say, if you go to America, maybe we can find some architect in America so that you
Okay.
will. And so I said, no, but if I have to study, I don't want to get married. So my mother was against sending me. I got admission at
Hmm,
UP, Austin,
hmm, hmm,
and but my father had this strength, and he said no. she wants to study further, I will send her. And again, it
Mm,
was finances was not easy, you
mm,
know, because
of
when,
course.
yeah. So he arranged loans for me for the first semester, and my mother agreed. Okay, and so it was they were going to come and see me sometime. But
Mm,
anyway, I came to the UT Austin, and that was my first major change in life because I
mm,
came
mm,
alone, which was very unusual at that
mm,
time. There was a few others, but one, my roommate in Austin,
mm,
she was studying physics. And
mm,
so in undergraduate school, I mean, in Ahmedabad, I studied the old pole homes. You know, I told
mm.
you about how I felt
Yes,
in childhood.
yes.
My thesis was response to climate, and where
Mm-hmm.
I studied how those homes were distinctly cooler, and that the
Mm,
new middle class homes in
mm.
suburbs,
And so, yes,
the way
suburbs.
the way they were built was
Mm,
they were not using the lessons we
mm,
have from
mm,
climate responsive buildings and
mm,
elements we use to make it
mm,
more comfortable and cooler. So that was my thesis. And so when I
mm,
came to UT, I was taking some classes with certain professors who were also doing energy studies, and they
mm,
were interested in climate responsive buildings.
mm,
So I decided to do this, carry out my research further. I mean, my work. I
mm,
took the homes that I'd studied in Ahmedabad. I made a model, and there is a lab in physics department. So we kind of, and there was a physics professor who told me, yeah, that was one very good thing about the universities here, that you can go to so many different
different. Mm,
buildings. And so that's where he showed, let me use the lab. I, did the test to show that wind actually moves the way we had said during through the courtyard, and how ventilation
mm,
works. So that was my thesis for
mm,
master. And during that process, I met Swadesh Mahajan. He was a
mm.
physicist who had just,
Okay.
and so that's when we were just friends at that time. I had no intention to get married, but it happened after a few
Yes.
years. And he had two children. He was
Mm,
divorced, and he had two children. So that was something where I again went through a very difficult time with
yes.
my parents, not
Yeah,
my
the
parents,
social
but my
setting. Yes.
social
Mm,
setting. My father actually passed away. That was the when I before I could visit him uh, from the US, which
mm,
was a very, very sad thing, saddest thing I would
mm.
say in my life. And so my mother had to make this decision, and she could not.
Yes.
And my
Yes.
brother would
She will
tell,
be under pressure as a woman herself.
yes, exactly. And so I was like, I had no idea how this will turn out.
Mm,
But I had gone to India for my immigration interview at that time.
mm, mm,
And my mother and I got like one night on the train together.
mm.
And
Yeah.
I explained to her about Swadesh, and
Mm.
it was amazing how understanding she was. She was so loving
Yes.
about it.
At
And
an individual level, yes, but she has to go through the pressure,
she
societal
did.
pressure. Mm.
And so with my brothers and all, for some time, it was very tense
Mm. I can
situation.
imagine.
Yeah, but it all worked out eventually.
Mm.
Swadesh came to Ahmedabad, we got married there, and I came back
Mm.
to Austin. So
Mhm.
I, those personal experiences as a woman and
Mm.
wanting to do my professional work
Yes.
in that area of climate
Mm.
responsive
Mm.
buildings, it was all happening at the same time.
At the same
And
time. And
yeah,
that's the thing women go through and trying to find a balance. I mean, of course, by these many years, you have learned the art of balancing life, profession, and passion because you are also an advocate of women rights. So I mean, how do you think that you can convey some mantras of balancing personal life, professional life, and even carrying out your passion? Because I think what I'm learning from most of the women I'm interacting is that they're really enjoying what they are doing, and the reason being that they could find their passion also.
Yeah.
Now, how is Kalpana doing about it?
Yes. So I have to say that on a personal level, I
Mm-hmm.
had an amazingly good relationship with my mother,
Mm-hmm.
from whom I have learned to kind of, kindness and love. And I
Mm-hmm.
think those two things in her case, she
Mm-hmm.
kind of was able to not worry about the societal aspects of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And because she took that attitude, and because I also decided that I understand why my brothers and my mother and all of them felt that way, because for them, their only daughter is going to marry someone who's already was married once and has two children, and the children were with him, so
Mm-hmm.
which was also unusual. And so uh, I, I explained, but I have to give a lot of credits to my husband, who, when he visited, he also sat down with them and said that, we understand your concerns because,
Mm-hmm.
it's that's this is our society. But because of that sort of dialogue, because showing understanding and affection, they responded to that very well.
Mm-hmm.
So we became kind of a loving family.
Mm-hmm.
They accepted me, on that personal level. They always had a lot of respect for the fact that I was so passionate about doing my work.
Mm-hmm.
So things kind of settled, in a very nice way. We had,
Mm-hmm.
a party for marriage party there. And Swadesh's family in Delhi, he's a Punjabi,
Mm-hmm.
and his family in Delhi, they have, I was like part of the family. They accepted me so
Mm-hmm.
well. And so I think both families having, I still cherish the fact that I have loving families on both sides. I visit them every year. And
Mm-hmm.
that gave me strength instead of
Mm-hmm.
having, a personal baggage.
Mm-hmm.
It was strength by love and affection and kindness.
And it helps to focus in the profession also in that sense.
Yes, yes. So I started working in Austin,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked in some of the private offices, doing just regular buildings, office buildings, some
Mm-hmm.
public buildings. But I realized that my soul is in sort of
Mm-hmm.
public architecture.
Yes.
And so I applied at the city of Austin, and
Mm-hmm.
and it was recession at that time, but I finally found a job with city of Austin by end of, like, in 1989. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think I just had a great time, because I realized this is where you are made in public, at least here in the city of Austin, you are owner's representative. So as if it's your money, except it's
Mm-hmm.
taxpayers' money, but you are
Yes.
in charge of it. And ensure, you have to ensure that the money is spent for the users in a way that it benefits. And it's public architecture. So whether it's a health center or a library or a
Mm-hmm.
senior activity center, I was so focused on community engagement that we must have people speak up. And so I realized that it's the community. Here I know that some people call themselves community architects instead of,
Yes, it's now growing as a concept all over the world now, even in Asia. I know in Bangladesh and in Bangladesh it is very popular as a concept,
right.
and in India also it is slowly growing. And I think we need many community architects now.
Yes, and I think that's when I found my place. And the
Nice.
city treated me well. they would let me do many things. And among one thing that I did was, our city has a very progressive energy utility provider called Austin
Mm-hmm.
Energy, and they were doing energy efficiency and building sustainably
So
from the
you found your space.
I found my space. Now, utility was separate from my public works department, but I worked with the group of people, and I
Mm,
was doing the sustainable guidelines. I started
mm,
doing that in our buildings. So started at that time, and then a city allowed me to work on the resolution. It was Austin
mm.
was one of the first cities which had a resolution to incorporate sustainability in
Wow. Mm,
all our projects. And
mm,
it's true that, I mean, resolution just tell you to do it, but when you have something as a policy,
mm.
things change much faster because then you can
Absolutely.
apply it at a much larger level. And
Mm,
so I worked on the first resolution the city of Austin had called Lead Resolution, and it
mm.
has grown. And after that, city even created a department called uh, Office of Sustainability. It
Wow.
was again separate from public works,
Mm,
and I continued in public works to
mm,
do buildings, to
mm,
do projects
mm,
such that they become uh, how we use public money, how we use
mm,
maximum use
mm,
of sustainability features in our
mm,
building, and allow people to participate. So they
mm.
own that facility. That whole process became my major obsession. And I have
Yeah,
been
that's
running
nice.
nice projects. My
Mm,
most recent project, it's LEED Gold. It's
mm.
called Dove Springs Public Health Center.
Wow.
And
Mm,
that project I'm particularly proud of because this community is the poorest community of
mm,
Austin. And they were
mm,
asking for a health center for a very long time, and they would not get it. So
mm,
city created an equity office, which was also a nice thing the city did. So once they have bond project proposals, they
mm,
look at that through the lens of equity. And
mm,
so Dove Springs was like top number one because
mm,
people used public health services, but they didn't have them in their neighborhood. So that
mm,
project, so I was helping health department
mm,
presenting all this. And
mm.
so that project was then now it's completed and the community they can literally walk to the facility for the immunizations, neighborhood services, food distribution, WIC services, all those services. So.
Yeah. Interesting. I bring the conversation to the gender part again, having you having worked in the US all through your life. What is the situation there for women professionals in the workspace? Do you really see any kind of distinction how the work environment is per se for women to practice or between colleagues? Kind of conflict, competition, collaboration. How are women practitioners seen or treated? What's your experience? And I know you are very well connected in India as well. And probably this is a good time that must acknowledge Madhvi decide to connect me with you. And also, it's a good time to share with everyone and you as well that this research is actually also very motivated and inspired by the work Madhvi does, and especially her book when it came out on women in architecture. It gave me
Yes.
much clarity what I would like to do in my research and what I would not like to do in my research. So where Madhvi's book focuses and research focuses on what women are doing in architecture, and I am focusing on what women are doing in their lives. So that's a major difference in the way we look at it. But just to tell you, Kalpana, that Madhvi is going to be with us to celebrate the 75th session. So it's very
Okay.
much coming in 2 weeks' time, and I used you to emotionally blackmail her to do the 75th session in a way. But
Sure.
looking forward.
She's a dear friend. So. We have
Yes, I know. I'm
been,
aware of it. So I thought it's
yeah,
a good time to acknowledge this part. So I come to a question now on having a spouse, because this is a question I have asked to most of the people. And maybe it's again a reflective question. And of course, we don't choose spouse by profession, but more with love and, whoever we have chemistry with. Now, what is your perception also? So, I have already asked one question about how it is in the workspace for women, and maybe you can take this question as well. What is your perception about having a spouse from the same profession or different profession? Does it influence women's career? So, you have two questions, one woman in the house and one woman in the office.
yes. So, this I had noticed based on my
Mm-hmm.
friends, couple
Mm-hmm.
friends that I think it does become difficult when you, at least
Mm-hmm.
I viewed it that way
Of
in
course,
my
it's
case,
your perception,
that,
yes.
yeah, that having a spouse in the same profession can become, you know, I don't know whether it's not competition, but it's always trying to compare yourself, or am I doing better, or am I doing the right thing, or it's, I think it gives you a lot more independence when
Mm,
two people have different professions.
mm,
And I
mm,
tell my husband is extremely supportive in every
mm,
way. In fact, I
mm,
will, so when you talked about gender based, I have to tell you this because
mm,
in 1990s,
mm.
I have uh, you know, as I told you, I always felt women were not being treated well.
Yes.
I came across, I was always doing some work for nonprofit groups, and that's
Mm,
how I became a co-founder of a group called Saheli, and
mm,
Saheli in Austin. And it
mm,
was for women who were either victims or survivors of domestic
mm.
violence. And
Oh,
this Yeah, and so this group in Chicago and New York, they asked me, why don't you start something in
mm,
Austin, because we here get calls from here. So anyway, I that was like my second life going on
mm,
parallel
mm,
to my
mm,
architectural life, where I learned a lot about women. And
mm,
the main thing, that always comes to me, two things. One is how we treat boys and girls so differently at our
mm,
home. And that stays, that upbringing stays in us,
mm.
in boys and in girls. Sometimes I actually
Yes.
pity boys when, because they are made, there is so much expectations from them.
Yes.
And
They
so
have different kind of pressure altogether. I
exactly.
mean, yeah.
And second thing is, some of the women that we helped,
Mm,
their mother-in-law, they went through something similar. But when it
mm,
came to their daughter-in-law, they
mm,
were engaging in the whole abusive process.
mm,
They
mm,
forgot that they have gone through this. And
mm,
those things about learning about the Indian culture helped
mm,
me that it's a very complex situation in our
mm.
society, how we treat
Yes.
women.
Mm,
And so some women just happen to be lucky, and they have
yes.
loving family, and they can grow out of
Mm,
this. But I think that it affects women here. I've seen it in my office here in
mm,
Austin, and where women still are not being treated equally. Now, we
mm,
had a city manager, a woman
mm,
city manager, and she was really good. In fact, I
mm,
actually enjoyed working with her a lot.
mm,
But she,
mm,
made her way through from just a secretary to all the way
mm,
to city manager. And she promoted women. She, in fact,
mm,
promoted me, doing some of the sustainable
mm,
guidelines. So it so happens that you come across people who
mm,
inspire you, and
mm,
he happened to be a woman. And
mm.
so uh, it's very complex. I
Hmm,
can't
hmm,
make a
hmm.
general statement
Of
that
course.
women
Hmm,
do it, but it is true that women go through the, you know, fighting for their
Mm.
positions or moving up
Mm.
in an
They have a
organization,
longer path. Yes,
longer
definitely.
path and more difficult path,
Mm.
unless they come across someone who just
Mm.
happens to support them. And
Yes,
many times,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and I say this in many sessions as well, that probably we are those blessed or privileged people who got support and who could nurture not only our profession but also nurture our passion and take things far. But when I look at the data, when I do research at the background about how women's lives have been in the profession, it definitely raises question that the profession itself is not equal, and that also impacts the output of the profession, because we are involved in making cities built environment, and if there are less women, it's not a direct mathematical equation that more women will ensure that there will be more spaces for women or cities will be safe. No, but still we can think about that the situations will change than the way they are today. How is it in the US working in that kind of work atmosphere? Is gender a discussion when you do public buildings, or how does that go in public buildings and spaces design? What is the approach taken? Is gender even a part of the discussion, or it is so equal society that gender need not be discussed?
Well, it's not directly discussed. It is,
Okay. Hmm.
and but that doesn't mean that it does not exist. I
Hmm.
think there are women in in uh, in principle still
Hmm.
have a, if they are determined, they still
Hmm.
have a path ahead. And
Hmm.
it's a struggle sometimes, and it, as you
Yes.
said, it takes more effort on their
Hmm.
part.
Hmm.
But gender is in a way discussed, because if you know, AIA has
Hmm.
a separate group called Women in Architecture, and they
Yes.
have their own meetings. And so those women felt that their voices were not quite heard. And AIA as an
Hmm.
organization is a very male
Hmm.
dominant organization. Now, again, it
Hmm.
depends upon who the person is at the helm.
Hmm.
Right now, it's a guy, but he's very open to, uh,
Hmm.
women, men, promoting women. So
Hmm.
again, individual can make a difference, but as an
Absolutely.
organization, it's a very male dominated profession. But you brought up the built environment, and
Hmm.
that's when, like now I do a lot of work with Citizens Climate Lobby,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I feel that, and we know built environment is responsible for 40% of all emissions.
Absolutely. And also
And
waste, waste generation, resource
exactly,
consumption. Yes.
resource consumption. And so I feel that maybe, I mean, not very many women are doing this work, but
Hmm.
I would like more women, young women,
Hmm.
to get involved in knowing what our built environment is doing and how it affects everyone,
Hmm.
men, women, but it affects women more, especially women who are underprivileged. They
Hmm.
go through more because as the planet warms,
Hmm.
conditions are much worse for
Hmm.
those who have very little. And women, in particular, when they have to cook with wood and other things in their little huts, they inhale that air pollution
Hmm.
is, a major thing for them. But I would like younger women to join the profession with that built environment and impacts of built environment,
Hmm.
learning about it. I spend hours and hours learning about how climate change is affecting us. And it
Hmm.
was tough. It was not easy to learn all that. But
Of
once I
course.
learned, I feel like, we have a responsibility. We have
Yes.
obligation to pay attention to how we build, how the materials are, brought, like,
Hmm.
if we just build the glass towers in Ahmedabad, just blows my mind that,
Oh, it's
you
a
know,
now serious problem now in all Indian cities.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, heat everywhere in India, in Southeast Asia, in Europe, in the US. It's becoming a very big issue. And
Yes.
unless we and we have uh, power, building those
Mm.
who are involved in designing and constructing and
Yes.
planning buildings, we have an obligation and we have opportunity to do it
Absolutely.
in a manner that can cool the environment. And that's why this is my book, Cooling Our
Yes.
Environment. Yeah,
Nice. Cooling our environment. Yes.
yes. And so that's when last 5 years I've been I have written that I do presentations on the book
Mm. Mm.
about why we need to do this, what is
Mm.
happening. And I really feel that, if people actually learn what is happening
Mm.
with our climate and environment and how it
Yes.
degrades the air quality and
Mm.
environment in general, we would want to do something about it. And I want to reach
Yes.
out to young people in particular because their views are not yet so set that they would, do the same thing. Architects,
Absolutely. And yes, and they are more awakened also as compared to, I will say, my generation. And then you are also a generation before
Mhm.
because they have exposure to more knowledge as well. I want to pick a point from your right now conversation here. When you were saying it matters who is at the helm of it to really see how things are. And I'm bringing a question on women leadership. How is it in US, especially in architecture field and planning? You can put it together as built environment. Uh, why don't we have many well-known women architects? What's your take on it? I mean, I asked this question from a thorough personal experience from across India. When started this research, I used to ask at different schools and colleges, name 5 or 10 women architects, well known women architects of the country. And people will fall short of telling them, telling their names. I'm very keen to learn about how is it in India. Is women in architecture seen as a very respectable profession? There are many women well-known architects. How it is? I mean, is the profession also very well recognized in India, in US, sorry? And are there many well-known women architects to look up to as role models? We miss role models in India, but I'm very keen to learn from you. How is it in the US?
So, as I mentioned earlier, that
Mm.
it's a very male dominated
Mm.
profession still. But
Still.
I have to say that I meet many, many women who
Mm.
have made, initially, again, it used to be that a man and woman are married, and that's how a woman would be very well known, like Robert Venturi here.
Mm.
He came to Austin, and but it was his wife was also very good architect, but
But
somehow,
people don't know. People
yeah,
don't know.
yes, exactly. And but now I have to say, AIA has had last two times they had women at the head, and
Hmm.
in fact, next year another woman will be leading that
Hmm.
organization.
Hmm.
So it's just now, I have to say, in last 3, 4 years, it has been changing much faster.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that helps a lot and I think social media helps. So you
Hmm.
know that in LinkedIn, I see so many women who are,
Hmm.
in from AIA actually,
Hmm.
posting and relating to people. It used
Hmm.
to be that like to meet a person, who is
Hmm.
head of AIA was like a dream for most people. But now
Yes. Oh.
social media has made it possible to
Hmm.
meet anyone on a personal level, and
Absolutely. I mean, we are also an example of it. We connected through connections and then cemented this connection through social media, through LinkedIn. you and me
Yes,
as well. So it is helping definitely,
yeah.
undoubtedly.
But it's true that it was difficult, and it in general is still not uh, so much that women own their uh,
Mm,
their practice. Women own
mm,
practices are
mm,
many, but it's making headways. And this
yeah.
women in architecture group that
Mm,
meets every year separately from
mm,
the male group, also it helps. And even in
mm,
Austin, we have women in green, for example. They would
mm,
meet separately, and there will be
mm.
three or four guys who do join, who,
Yes, that's nice.
yeah. And so things are changing, I had to say, but they
Mm,
were like, I mean, they're slowly changing. And again, I think some guys who are at the helm know
mm.
that this should change, are helping
Yes.
promote it.
Absolutely. I mean, with a person like whom I'm interacting, I already feel overwhelmed about it that you have seen generations of people and profession, and also you have noticed the change which has come from 68 to now 2026. It's a huge time when you see the changes. What would you really say about you know you as a professional, that you can say that yes, something was like this when I was in undergraduate as a woman, and today I am here, and yes, I see around, as you were already saying with AIA here. But do you have a chance to also look through what is going on in India? Do you see a change in India as well? And will you be able to enlighten me if you have to compare where do we stand between India and US in terms of women in architecture?
Um, I come to India every year, so and I meet Madhvi and my other School of Architecture friends every year,
Yes.
and we keep in touch. And I I have to say that things have changed uh, more in the US than in India.
Okay.
Uh,
Hmm.
and again, there were cultural differences here also, which
Absolutely.
went
Hmm.
through, but I think there are more women in leadership. And that may not
Yeah.
be just in architecture, but in
Mm,
general. And it
mm,
always helps when you have lawmakers
absolutely.
or other professionals who are
Yes.
women and who speak up. And they
Mm,
come and, on social media
mm,
or on TV or
mm,
radio. I think things have, in that sense, moved faster in the US. I think in
mm,
India, I find that, and the fact that someone like Madhuri, who should
mm.
have been teaching in School of Architecture or SEPT, has struggled. She struggled to become,
Yes. Many of us, to be honest.
yes, and you, I'm sure others have not known about you, but I think it's very hard. I find SEPT still very male dominated,
Oh,
focused.
absolutely. I mean, I can veto you for this definitely on any given day.
Yeah. And things are different in that sense over here. The fact that I was an Indian and in my
Mm,
public works department, they made me in charge of the architectural group. I
mm,
became a supervisor. They would send me to conferences to speak about what city is doing. I think that was quite remarkable. I'm
mm,
not sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. And so if and they saw the fact that I was totally passionate about it. And
Mhm,
they liked that fact. My colleagues, my other people in the city departments appreciated that fact. So but same thing I cannot speak about India. If they would, you know
mm,
I mean, women, even they are from India, from privileged families, and still can't find these headwinds, I guess,
mm.
to achieve that. So I think things are still more difficult in India. And when I
Yeah,
did my,
that's true. We are slow. Huh.
yeah, I,
Pardon, go ahead.
as part of my book, I this year actually, I went to
Mm,
three institutions to talk about it: Krivia, JJ
mm,
School of Arts, and Delhi
mm,
School of Architecture and Planning. And there
mm,
were many students
mm,
and female students too. So I
mm,
was very inspired by that
mm,
so
mm,
many female students were,
mm,
wanting to do that. And I really hope that they, when you have many more, that they will
mm.
make a difference. But I think,
Absolutely.
yeah. And so I was inspired by that. And I had one lecture where Ashok B. Lal, who is,
Mm.
about
Yes,
him, yeah, he was,
absolutely.
yeah. And there was Anumita Mukherjee. I think she she was with the environmental group, India. So I forgot the name of the group. She was there, and they were all very inspiring about the
Mm,
book and
mm,
the fact that she was there, and one male and one female was there, was a nice thing that
mm,
she was taken. Her
mm,
opinions were very seriously taken, and so
mm,
there are inspiring people. I when I worked with Seva in India,
mm.
Elaben Bhatt was,
Yes,
she got a position in Rajya Sabha. And so there
yes.
are few examples like that, but overall in
Mm,
India, it is still,
yeah.
you know, women are, you know, I think their conditions have not changed as fast.
Mm.
I wish that
As it should be. Yeah,
as it
as it
should
should
be.
be. And
Yeah.
I still wish to go back to that point, and probably it is because the leadership makes a huge difference. And we have been seriously in shortage of women leadership. It's not only leadership in architecture, but leadership in general as well. We have been quite shortage, and I'm very close political observer. Rather than doing my own research, I observe politics very closely, and I feel that we have still not gone beyond Srimati Indira Gandhi and looked at more women leaders. The fact that, again, we come to the point where we started this conversation, the whole social cultural environment where we live in affects the profession. Likewise, the leadership environment also affects the profession because we have shortage of leadership in women amongst women in all sectors. It's not architecture in all sectors. I'm doing a parallel research on women in water, by the way, like when
Mhm.
I'm doing women in architecture, and I have same observation and same learning from there that there is a serious shortage of leadership. What do you think? Why women leadership is in shortage? And it is not India alone. Maybe India's leadership and women's position is slow in transition. And I mean, I can go back to political discussion again because we have still not arrived to 20% in the parliament. But US is also not doing very great in that sense. But keeping the discussion only in architecture profession and built environment, what do you think is the reason why women are why not many women are very famous architects, and why don't we see many women leaders in the profession of architecture and planning? What is the reason? Where do we lack? Or is it some kind of unrequired competition between men and women, which is also fine? But the fact that it is a male dominated profession, I am looking for women role models. And this is also the reason why we are doing this conversation series, because then at least to the society, I'm able to say that here are the 100 role models you can look up to, you know and it's a serious shortage, to be honest, Kalpana. What's your take? Why are we or is it the benchmark which is created is already a masculine or male male criteria benchmark of being successful or famous, which women are unable to achieve? What are the reasons you think that not many women famous architects are there? I grew up in my undergraduate knowing only about Didi Contractor. Coming to SEPT for my master's, I learned about Zaha Hadid. And still after that, it was a full stop. There were not many. I mean, of course, then I had the fortune of working with Meenakshi Jain, which was for me, I think, life-changing moment to work with that rock-solid woman. But still, I was struggling to find many famous women architects in the world and in the country. What is the reason behind it?
Um, so I would go back to how the way we are brought up. I mean,
Mm,
you somehow you never have this sort of this ambition of,
mm,
I mean, you want to do well and you
mm,
want to be accepted. And if you
mm.
do well up to some point, you somehow feel
That
satisfied.
is, yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
Because our aspiration and expectations are very focused and limited, probably.
Yeah. And I think, in fact, like my husband he inspires young scientists and
Mm,
women, men, women. And he said there are many more women who come. But I think what happens is it's that inside us,
mm,
where I don't know whether it's something that happened in upbringing or our mental, sort of
mm,
aspirations for something that we just don't aim that high. And the guys probably do. And they want to have their practice and
mm,
and then if they have proper support,
mm.
economically and otherwise, that also helps because when you
Absolutely.
have good practice and your father is doing well, his son, and maybe if you have daughters, you would promote them too. But I think they somehow have that desire and ambition that
Mm.
women somehow, it, whatever reason, I don't quite know, I'm just thinking it's upbringing.
Yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because you raised the point of having a famous father and all, I think this is also a good moment to share with you and also, of course, everyone who will listen to it, how this idea of doing this research on women in architecture germinated in me personally. And I worked with Dr. Doshi, Billy Doshi, as an early career person, architect. And initially, I used to think that what a luck it will be if you are a child of a famous architect. And I mean, as a young aspiring architect, oh, I wish I was the child of Doshi, and I would become very famous, and I will do this, I will do that. As a very young, uncorrupted mind.
Yes, yes.
Uh, and in few months and couple of yeah, in few months, when I knew and I learned that Doshi's daughter is also architect, my curiosity become much deeper as what it is to be a sibling of a famous, person, and it became kind of a very serious question in my mind as why Doshi's daughter is not practicing and is not famous. I mean, I always acknowledge it because that made me very uncomfortable, to be honest.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the fact that the son in law becomes the natural hire and successor of the practice was very much interesting and intriguing for me to find out. And then I found out that most of the famous architects of the world, not India alone, are actually supported at the background by their not so famous women architects.
Hmm.
And this is still the case in India as well. And then, I mean, I'm just sharing how this research
Yeah, yeah. No, I
unfolded in
think,
my earlier years.
yeah.
And then, of course, seeking your own place, your own passion, your own everything then started falling in place. I started reading about it because I actually sat on this research for more than 10 years before even I started working on this research because I was trying to find what exact I would like to do. And being interested in biographical journeys, I thought I'm not interested in architecture, but I'm interested in more identities, how people shape their lives, and the fact that the profession is affecting many women professionals who, and now after having spoken to now 70 women, I feel how deep their involvement is in the profession, how much contribution they have made. It's just that either I am ignorant about their work, or the society is unaware about it, or maybe they are also not making an effort that society knows about them. It's both
Exactly.
ways.
I
It's
think,
both
yeah,
ways.
yeah.
That brings me to actually penultimate question, and we should start wrapping up now. I would like you to imagine a hypothetical situation. Maybe you can imagine it in US because you have practiced more there. Imagine all the famous architects of the country are women, and there are only few men here and there who are famous. Do you think it will affect? Famous means they are doing more work, they are doing deeper work, they are influencing policies, they have more impact in the society. Do you think the built environment would look different? And what will be that difference?
Hmm. It would definitely look different, that I can say.
Like, for
Uh,
example, few
yeah.
examples?
For example, I think women kind of tend to, uh, they raise children, they
Hmm,
still do more in the kitchen, in the
hmm,
household than men
hmm,
do.
hmm,
Uh, so, assuming that's the case, they would pay more attention
hmm,
to how it affects uh, their children and their own lives.
hmm,
And
hmm,
especially, I would say, and I like to say this for climate and environment,
hmm,
that I think that because we women are very close to the ground, to
hmm,
surroundings, to the
hmm,
surrounding environment, that they might care more
hmm,
about what the environment does to them,
hmm, hmm,
to
hmm, hmm,
their children, and they may want policies that
hmm,
I mean, they may want work toward, they may promote, they may
hmm.
spend more time thinking about how built environment can
Mm,
create a better, condition for
mm,
everyone. And so
mm.
I feel that maybe so many skyscrapers wouldn't be there if many women were
That's a
dominating.
very good observation. Yeah. I mean, it's just to
Yeah,
collect some examples. What will be the difference? And
yeah.
you are so spot on. Maybe there will be less skyscrapers all over and
And more
highly
humane,
unsustainable things.
I mean,
Yeah.
societies that we plan where,
Mm,
you interact, you walk more walkable, more, I mean,
mm,
something that at least you wait. I mean, now, for example, architects, male architects, everywhere they know that what built environment is doing.
mm, mm,
So
mm,
how can we build more
mm,
of something that is damaging our environment? And I
mm, mm,
understand that they have, uh, corporations who want them to giving them lots of money to build that, and they don't want to let the projects go. I
mm,
know
mm,
it's a very fundamental question about how our
mm, mm,
society
mm,
is built,
mm,
but at least if there are more female leaders, they may, question it more. For example,
mm, mm.
Angela Merkel in Germany,
Yes, of
you know,
course.
how she would bring up in this male group of people at
Mm,
G7 and other places, she was able to bring up major issues at the
absolutely.
and so if we
And
have more,
the fact that she could even think about stopping the nuclear and energy here in Germany,
yeah,
I think that's a big contribution she made as a woman leader, looking at the impact.
yeah. So I think if you have more women in built environment, they would probably think of uh, these sort of aspects which affect people day-to-day life and do something about it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not that we need buildings for people
Hmm.
and we did
Hmm.
need communities, but they can be visualized such
Hmm.
that
Better. Hmm.
yeah, that it does not
Absolutely.
degrade our environment and make it better.
Absolutely. Hmm. That brings me to the last question, a very simple question, and we would like to use it for promotion later. Some things, some behavioral change at the workplace, which you will recommend we should bring forth so that woman feels more belonging, feels more empowered, so that they are able to take their profession further, carry their life further in the profession. What do you think we should take into account? Very simple behavioral change. I mean, of course, policy changes matter, but behavioral change will be the first thing, line of, I will say, change.
Yeah. So I think uh, one thing I would say is we, I mean, talking about myself, where I sometimes, even when I know I'm capable, I'm not able to convey my viewpoint, to
Mhm.
to kind of have that, create that self confidence in
Mhm.
a kind of active way, because we all
Mm.
know about how self confidence works, but actively work on yourself to not put yourself down
Mm.
and not put yourself brag about it, but the
Mm.
good things that you have done is worth sharing, and own those
Absolutely.
things. And learn from your own mistakes. Don't
Mm.
sort of put yourself down when male colleagues are there and you feel like they are doing so much better. So it maybe at some point you can just forget that you have to deal with man or woman, but just as a
Absolutely.
person, how do I make myself more qualified, present
Mm.
myself such that I convey my viewpoint
Mm.
without thinking that I'm a woman and how they are going to perceive. Just
Mm.
forget about the fact that you are a human being and you are trying to convey your aspirations, your desires as to how you would see this world, and be bold
Mm.
about it and
Mm.
convey that viewpoint. And we are going to make mistakes. So own the
Yeah, absolutely.
mistake.
Everyone is making mistakes, so
Right.
it's yeah.
We have to own our mistakes and then move forward with
Mm.
our desires in the heart, that how, for me, it's how to cool our environment, how to,
Yes.
improve our built environment so that it's a better life for our children and our grandchildren and future generations. We have
Yes.
that power and we should exercise that.
Mm-hmm. Very well put. And I think you also summed it up. Having self-confidence is extremely important, and it's important that we also learn the art of presenting ourselves. I mean, in this series, we are also trying to do our little bit to understand where do we stand today, where can we head toward tomorrow as a women collective, for that matter. I come to the closure of my questions, and it is also one and last opportunity for you to ask me any question if you have.
Well, I wish you good luck for this very good project, and I really appreciate you are doing it. And I look forward to reading it, and I mean, watching it. If it's or a book, then I'm reading it. And I really want young women to sort of think about, young women architects in particular, think about what we can do for the built environment. How can we make changes and how can we promote policies and get more engaged, not just in our own work, but our surroundings, our local community, government, because nothing changes without policies. And we want to
Absolutely.
have better policies and get engaged with the government, not feel like, I'm not in politics, therefore I will not do it. We all are part of politics. We all have to be.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so
And
that's how we can improve and do our, something, leave our mark, when we leave this world. So
absolutely. And you also opened up today to know that I have another buddy to talk about politics because that's one of my favorite topic in life, to be honest, to be staying politically active. Nevertheless, for the session today, I must close with the points that are disclaimer as well as the way we look at it. The architecture profession in principle is genderless or neutral, as you may call it. So the issue of being woman or woman should not arise, and very well put by Kalpana today that we need to, at some point, we need to just forget about it and do our bit and do our best. It is my hope to actually live a day when we don't have to talk about women and talk about gender in the profession. And this research is just a small step towards attaining that goal of an equitable profession. And we also heard today, Kalpana, very well, that it may chart a path towards equitable and sustainable built environment as well. And Kalpana herself is a living testimony of that. There's a disclaimer here that having more women may not engender the profession and the practice. It is more about the feministic values which are crucial than the masculine way built environments have been dealt over the years, over the decades. The more I am interacting to these emphatic, enlightened women, I am actually realizing the deep contribution women like Kalpana are making in not only engendering the profession and practice, but also delimiting the very definition and redefining what architecture means. I mean, today we talked about community architecture in brief, but since the conversations are more about women and gender, we did not dig into it. But more and more women I have interacted in this series, the diversification or redefining of the limits of architecture is coming out very clear. And I find it as a very positive outcome from this research where we are focusing on lives of women, but it is also talking about what actually architecture is. Thank you so much, Kalpana Sutaria, for this enlightening interaction. May you remain an inspiration, and I'm really grateful to have learned a bit about your endeavors and life. Of course, in 1 hour, we cannot learn everything. I wish you all the best to continue your endeavors, and really humbling to have a very senior member like you to talk about your life journey. And I hope you keep us posted about it. Here, we shall continue our interaction on women in architecture to learn about the endeavors of more women. I'm very happy that we have crossed 70 mark and hoping to cross 100 very soon. We are in season 4, and I shall connect with you outside this conversation, Kalpana, and we'll take it further to explore more collaborations. Hope to meet you sometime soon in person. Let me know when you are in Ahmedabad because I am also not in Ahmedabad right now, but we'll find a time. Thank you so much, and please take care.
Thank you, Mansee. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.